Criminal charges have been laid against chemical giant United Phosphorus Limited, or UPL, after a warehouse full of toxic agrochemicals was set alight near Durban, South Africa. The fire was started on the 13th of July, 2021, during the unrest in the province. For days, smoke from the remains of the building continued to smolder, spewing toxic fumes into the air. The local residents felt the effects almost immediately.
The day after the pesticide factory went on fire, I was walking my dog as usual down the beachfront. I was wearing a mask, but there was a terrible smell in the air. And as I approached home, I found that I was having problems breathing. I am asthmatic, but it wasn't like a normal asthma attack. And I got inside and I phoned my neighbour because the breathing was worse, and she's a nurse. And I just said to her, "Can't breathe." So she came over and she put me onto a nebulizer. For me, everything just went completely black. But my neighbour, who's the nurse, said that my pulse had stopped and my breathing stopped, and she had to resuscitate me.
This video, taken by a local resident of Mdloti 3 days later, alerted the community to the fact that something else was very wrong.
I'm just walking south side of Mdloti here at the moment, and I see there is quite a lot of dead crayfish being washed up on the beach here, as well as a couple of dead fish. There's obviously something that's been spilled into the ocean. There were kids surfing around the corner here. They got out the water. They said they didn't like the smell of the water. It is a bit concerning, so I think we have to just warn the residents of Mdloti about entering the sea. There is a problem here.
The source of the problem was the same as the air pollution: the fire at the nearby UPL chemical warehouse. During attempts to put out the fire, the runoff water, filled with thousands of agrochemical substances, including potent pesticides and herbicides, washed into the stormwater drains and into the Mdloti River, turning the naturally brown brackish water to this toxic bright blue. The Mdloti River estuary is about 6 kilometers from the UPL storage facility. It's nestled between two towns, the bustling tourist hub of Mdloti to the right and the little village of Mdloti to its left. A few days after the spill, the beaches in between became littered with dead fish, crabs, and crayfish. The authorities closed the beaches along a 40-kilometer stretch of coastline, warning locals against all recreational activities in the sea or on the beach, and not to touch any dead creatures due to possible contamination by dangerous chemicals. Environmental cleanup companies were called in to assist. 4 weeks after the incident, these workers removed a reported 3.5 tons of dead fish and other creatures from the area.
Well, I think it's a tragedy, and you know that the chemical plant has blown up, and so the chemicals would have spilled out of that plant and gone into the river and into the sea. For some reason or the other, most of these chemical plants are built next to rivers, so that whatever happens will spill into the river. So the marine resources have become the sacrificial zones. We've got a host of chemical plants all along the coastline, all on rivers and estuaries, and we've seen that the water quality has deteriorated badly, resulting not only marine life being affected, but also human beings being affected as well.
It's since been revealed by the Amabungani Center for Investigative Journalism that the warehouse had millions of liters of chemicals, some classified as harmful, toxic, or very toxic. The Mdloti River is where the most visible evidence of this contamination lies. The word Mdloti is an isiZulu word meaning place of reeds, after the reed beds that line its edges. And the estuary and lagoon are home to a diverse array of creatures that have died or been affected. And just around the corner in Mdloti is a marine conservancy, also home to numerous creatures sensitive to environmental disturbances. This small rocky shore reef is the only protected habitat of its kind in the whole of KwaZulu-Natal. It's a small reef, but it's a no-take zone, meaning no marine organisms, whether mussels, oysters, or fish, can be harvested from this particular area. And it's an important nursery and breeding ground for the other reefs nearby.
The Mdloti community are very proud of the Conservancy with respect to the work that they're doing on the coastal shore and the reef, as well as the work that they're doing in the forests.
The Mdloti Marine Conservancy is not only special to the residents, it's the subject of a number of scientific studies. Dr. Erica Stain and her research assistant Zulani Umslegu are from the Oceanographic Research Institute and have been studying the mussel beds on these rocks for a number of years. It's just over a week since the spill, and they've come to see if there's any immediate evidence of damage to the mussel beds.
I was definitely worried, especially when I heard fish and crayfish washing up on the shore. That risk of losing a whole population of mussels, that was quite scary.
Dr. Stain says that in the late 1990s, the mussel population here was severely degraded due to unregulated collection. But since it was declared a conservancy and a no-take zone, this little piece of rocky shore habitat has made a remarkable recovery.
This area is quite unique. It's got a very good mussel population, and it is the only area in the whole of KZN where you have such a healthy mussel population. They're basically forming an important habitat. They're forming this matrix where a lot of other animals live in between the mussels. They feed into between the mussels. So it's basically the backbone of this whole rocky shore ecosystem, and it's very important that we have these mussels here for biodiversity.
Another scientist, Dr. Angus MacDonald from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, studies the effects of climate change on invertebrates like zoanthids and anemones at Mdloti. He's also come to see if they have been affected.
Protected areas are super important, even if they're very small, because they provide a space for organisms that are local in terms of where they live, that have territories that might not be very, very large. And these small protected areas can protect a disproportionate number of things like reef fish that have set territories that are very limited in extent. And when those populations build up, it's on the edges of the protected area where you are allowed to fish. It's been shown that people start to catch more fish and are able to harvest more organisms from the rocky shore, and the role it plays in subsidizing the outside areas that are available for subsistence fisheries.
While fishing is not allowed on this reef, it is allowed on either side of it, up and down the coast. But since the spill and the subsequent closure of beaches, the subsistence fishermen, who rely directly on the ocean for their livelihoods, have been severely affected.
We have over 50,000 subsistence fishermen on this coastline. It's just a tragedy that they now, the KZN subsistence fisher folks who are poor, who are unemployed, who have been living unemployed through the COVID period, now find once again they're going to bear the brunt of all the dead fish because they're not going to be able to catch any fish because the fish has been poisoned.
Bob and Layla Abrams are two of the subsistent fishers who regularly fished in the waters where the spill occurred. Their source of income and food has now been taken away from them.
Through their negligence, we have been affected adversely because those were our fishing grounds where we used to catch a lot of fish in abundance. Now fishing was our only source of income to put food on the table. Now our livelihood, our sustenance and our food has been taken away from us.
It's been a very bad impact on us as ladies and mothers. We have children that's going to school, and we help our husbands to put food on the table. It's also scary knowingly that the chemicals are in the water, but now we don't really have a source of income.
And as more information comes to light about how UPL was able to store such a massive stockpile of toxic chemicals here, without consultation or a plan to notify and protect people in the surrounding area in case of a disaster, local residents, environmentalists, and the subsistent fishing community are angry.
Down with UPL, down! Down with dirty pollution, down! It's not a fight for today, it's a fight for long term!
Our cry is UPL need to be held accountable and take full responsibility.
Makes one feel angry and upset that that building was built without an EIA close to the river and close to residential areas. And one wonders just how much more abuse the environment will take.
But when it comes to environmental laws, the South African Constitution is clear. On paper at least, chemical companies have to comply with a number of national laws as well as local bylaws. And it appears that UPL was not compliant on a number of these. But to date, the company continues to deny any wrongdoing. Back in Mdloti, after Dr. Stain's initial inspection of the mussel beds, she's not seeing any immediate visible damage. Yet.
For me, it's good news to see that the mussel population looks healthy. There's not mussels that's gaping open. There's no immediate impacts visible at the moment. There's not a lot of mussels dying off. The danger is, of course, that the toxins might be in the water and they are accumulating that in the flesh. So because they filter feed such a huge amount of water, they bioaccumulate toxins in their flesh. So often you'll find much higher concentrations of toxins in the mussels than in the water column. It's definitely going to affect human health if they do collect mussels. But we'll have to see in the future how long, we don't know how long the toxins will stay around, how high the concentrations are. And we're assuming that the ocean and wave action will just dilute that toxins quite a bit. But at the moment we can't say.
Dr. McDonald has similar thoughts.
I've looked at the species that I thought might be susceptible to this acute polluting event. From what I've seen, the organisms that I would have expected to have been filtering water, things like mussels, sponges, anemones, zoanthids, none of these organisms seem to have had any mortality. So everything seems to be healthy. Nothing seems to even have bleached significantly, that is lost color due to the poisoning that took place. This implies to me that this acute event may not have necessarily polluted this rocky shore environment significantly. You know, unfortunately, the time frame is too short.
Both scientists are right. The time frame is too short. Scientific data will take a while to gather. It's been over a month since the disaster occurred. The river has returned to its original color, but there's barely a creature in sight. And the long-term effects on the environment, the plants and the soil, remain unclear. Not to mention the toll on human health and the economic impact on tourism. The incident has also raised serious questions about environmental disaster management and put non-compliance issues firmly into the spotlight. Perhaps one good thing to come out of this event shows that disasters like these can happen unexpectedly and absolutely every measure to prevent them needs to be taken. But for now, the matter rests with the courts.